Wilbur H. Wright. I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. I was in the Army, 5th Army, 88th Division, 5th Army. Well, I was 17 years old when I first heard of Pearl Harbor being bombed, and of course we hadn't gotten into the war with Germany at that time. We went in conflict with Germany in I think 1942. But I took it pretty serious as a young boy. I wanted to do my part, and I was in high school, still in senior year in high school. Would have graduated probably in 1942. But I was in the first draft of 18 and 19-year-olds. Congress approved that in 1942. And I had to go to 1943 to graduate, and the principal of the school got us, there was 50 of us at draft age, and he got us all deferred 6 months till we could finish high school. And I took it real serious. I wanted to do my part, and instinctive young boy, you want to fight, you know, you want to get in there and do the fighting. And I took it real serious, and I got, you had to go register the draft board, and they filled out papers on you, and they mailed you a selective service letter telling you when to report to your selective service board. And then it went from there. You get another letter telling you where to meet with your draft board, and they'd march you to the train station, and you'd take the train to Tullahoma. They had well, I guess it would be I don't know what you'd call it, well, it was an Army camp, selective service board, and they'd give you a physical, your eyes, your physical examination, all that occurred with you, and you report back home, all but train. Then you'd get another letter telling you to report to the draft board, and that'd take you to the Union Station. You wound up in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, after you was drafted. It was physical after physical and trip after trip. And back then they had old train cars that they'd go through a tunnel up in Chattanooga, and the soot and stuff out of the steam engine would come through those windows, and you'd be filthy time you got to Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. And you went through after, they fed you with clothes, and you stayed there a week or two, and then they assigned you to the Army camp that you was going to be assigned to, which mine was Camp Wheeler, Georgia. Well, I was sent to Camp Atterbury, Indiana, and from there to a camp up in Pennsylvania. I forget the city. Then I wound up at Norfolk, Camp Patrick Henry, Virginia, pretty close to the coast, and shipped out from there overseas. But it was quite an experience. You make new buddies and new friends, and you knew you was going overseas, and you didn't know where you were going or all secret orders. But of course, during the wartime, period of wartime, things are different. The captain of the ship, we pulled out in the harbor at Norfolk, Virginia. The captain of the ship didn't know where he was going. After he got underway, my understanding was he got the secret orders to where he was heading, and it was, they didn't divulge it to us. But we wound up in Casablanca, Africa, North Africa. Now the ship, this was a period of time when the German U-boats, submarines, were real active in primarily the Atlantic Ocean. And the ship took a zigzag course every 15 minutes. You could stand up on the deck and watch the wake in the ship. You could set your watch by it. Every 15 minutes, that ship zigzagged all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. Submarines, it takes them, we understood, maybe 15, 20 minutes to zero in on a ship to fire a torpedo. So every 15 minutes, that ship would turn. It was amazing. Combat had done left North Africa and had gone into Italy, Sicily and Italy. We had to crawl, we stayed 2 weeks in North Africa in a Don B. Passage camp. Don B. Passage was the first man killed in combat in North Africa with American forces, and they named that camp after him, Camp Don B. Passage. And we took a train across the desert to Oran, Africa. It took us 3 days to cross the desert by, it was 40 and 8, they call it 40 and 8 narrow gauge railroad tracks, 40 and 8 boxcars. These small boxcars would haul 40 horses, 8 men or 40 horses, or vice versa. Some of us could sleep while the others stood up. They put a Lister bag of water in a boxcar, several boxcars. Some of you had to stand up while the others slept. Now this was a 3-day journey. And it stopped at every little cow path, and we wound up in Oran, and we stayed there several days, and they boarded us on ship in a convoy and crossed the Mediterranean, and we ran into German U-boats in the Mediterranean. They dropped death charges. We was forced to put on life jackets on deck in case the ship got sunk. And we wound up in Naples, Italy, at the dock in Naples, Italy. I was in the 5th Army under Mark Clark, General Mark Clark, and the British were on the East Coast, and we took the 5th Army, took the middle of Italy. We went through Apennine Mountains, Po Valley, across the Po Valley. I was in all 3 major battles in Italy. We were sent to a second replacement depot right out of Naples, Italy. And the battle began in Belgium and Germany. You heard of the Battle of the Bulge. They broke through our lines, the Germans did, roughly 65 miles. One of the worst battles, I guess, in military history was the Battle of the Bulge in Belgium. Well, there were so many men getting killed and wounded. They were drawing troops out of other military groups to make up men to send in to reinforce the troops in Belgium. And they put me in the Ranger training. and which was real rough training. We had 2 weeks training in Ranger training. Then they sent me and my group to different divisions. They sent me to the 88th Division, 5th Army, 88th Division, and sent me to the front lines. And I had been promoted to corporal, which then was a squad leader, and I was assigned 12 men in a squad. But now, I've been to Montecatini. They done a lot of, the Air Force done a lot of bombing. They just leveled that place nearly. The Germans had it occupied for several years. And I counted, this sounds unrealistic, we got pinned down in a wheat field in Italy, this side of the Apennine Mountains, and I was laying in a wheat field on my back. I counted 500 bombers, numerous size, B-17, B-24s, different size bombers. They were in groups. I laid on my back, had nothing else to do, was pinned down, and they come over pretty low. You could, they was flying 500 feet, I guess, over us, but they was on their way to bomb Casina. And that sounded like a lot of planes, but that wasn't unusual. They'd send 1,000 planes to bomb Berlin, Germany, and that wasn't unusual. 1,000 planes in an armada, but I counted 500 laying on my back and lost. I just quit counting. I don't know. It might have been quite a number more, but that's a lot of planes. But I was sitting in an army truck down below Casina, a little further on up as we moved on up further into enemy territory. We were sitting in an army truck, and we could see what was left of Casina, but I wasn't in that fighting of that area at all. They'd leave us on the front line maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and they'd pull us off to a rest area, like a bivouac area, and that was a relief for us. Then you'd stay there maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and they'd move us up to another area, and we'd relieve another company. But it was, well, it's hard to explain, but it gets you confusing. You never did know how long you was going to be able to stay on the front. Now, I got wounded twice, and I was in the hospital, like the week being 3 months. I was in Florence, Italy, Leghorn, Italy, in the hospital, and they moved me up to Piombino, Italy, up in the northwest point of Italy on the Tyrrhenian Sea. That occupied an Italian hospital to treat the wounded, and I stayed there. I had 2 other operations, but you'd stay a while on the front, and they'd pull you off and relieve you. We moved up across at nighttime, and I was standing with my platoon behind the company commander. There was a German farm, had occupied German farmhouse, sitting on a hill, and you could see it visually at night. It was sort of a moonlight night. He called for artillery support on that hill, and I was standing right behind him. He had a radio man with him, and he moved us out before the artillery started falling. and you get short rounds in artillery fire. They've got artillery observer. He stays pretty well with your company, but those short rounds fell on us, and we had a company. Full strength company is probably 200 or more men, and you're short a lot of men because due to being wounded, killed, and a full strength company though is about 200 men. Well, we was at the base of this hill when those rounds started falling on us, and you could hear men screaming. My lieutenant got hit in the helmet with a slab of shrapnel, knocked him down. I jumped on him. It done got dark. It's dark. See if he's hurt. He said, "No, I'm not hurt, but where's my helmet?" Well, we rode around and found his helmet, and a piece of shrapnel had hit him in the forward part of his helmet and knocked him down, put a crease in. And if he hadn't had a helmet on, it killed him, see. So he come up to me. They called a little powwow, some of the officers did. And he come to me, he said, "Take your squad and go up and take that farmhouse." I said, "Well, Lieutenant, I don't have but 3 men in my squad." Now, I was squad leader, I had 12 men. Several of them been killed, several wounded. He said, "I'll get you another squad." He said, he went and got me another squad from another platoon, brought me 8 or 10 more men over there. Well, I started leading them up that hill, and it'd been raining a little bit, and the old muddy bank was slick. I got up the bank, and I got up to near that farmhouse, and I looked around, there wasn't a man behind me. Well, there I was by myself, nobody behind me. I looked up and turned around, here come a man. I said, "Where's the rest of the men?" He said, they couldn't get up that slick bank. He said, they'll get up here directly. Well, I heard some American talking. And I told this fellow, I said, "Where's that coming from?" Another platoon had come around and flanked that farmhouse from another end. They took 7 Germans out of it, took prisoners. Well, the lieutenant come to me and he said, "Y'all take the platoon, go up top that hill and dig in up there." So we get up top of the hill. It done gotten dark. Was trying to decide where to dig in to secure that hill. I stepped in the face of 2 Germans in a machine gun nest. You could see the head sticking out about the. I come there stepping right in the face. Throwed that M1 rifle on them. They come out with their hands up. So the sergeant said, "You and another guy take them down to that farmhouse." Said, "See if they question them, get some information out of them." Well, we did, and my lieutenant got me. He said, "Right, I just come out of a powwow with we got to make a forward attack and make an outpost about 400 yards north and get Sergeant Fraley to bring the platoon back down to the farmhouse, and we'll push off from here." He said, "You know where they at." So I took off by myself, trying to find where they were. I knew pretty well the location. As I got up pretty well close to where they were, the Germans started throwing mortar fire on us, coming over my head, hitting in the valley down below, and they just kept getting closer behind me. And I hollered for Sergeant Fraley, and I never will forget what he said. I said, get the platoon, and we got to make a forward outpost, get them down to farm." About that time, a shell went off behind me and blowed me probably 10, 15 foot. I don't know. I didn't get up and measure. But it blowed me unconscious. I was unconscious. Hit the ground. It woke me up, and I was stinging all over. I hollered, "Sergeant Fraley, I'm hit." I never will forget what he said. Never have forgot it. "What do you want me to do? Come back down and get hit too?" I never did forget that. You're supposed to help each other, you know. So fellow next to me, he said, he hollered over, he knew me, I don't remember who he was. He said, "Wright, are you hit bad?" I said, "I'm stinging all over, I don't know." He said, "Well, there's another guy got hit in his back." He said, "I'll try to get you all down to that farmhouse. There's medics down there." He got us down to the farmhouse, and I told my lieutenant I was hit. He said, "Well, I tell you what, you got to go get off the lines. You got to get that shrapnel. You got to get medical attention." He's let that medic examine you over there. He examined me and poured sulfur powder on my wounds, and he said, "Go down the back of this house, old farmhouse, had 2 floors in it." He said, "There's a bunch of wounded in the basement of this farmhouse." He said, "Let them tend to you, and they'll take care of you." So I wound up in another farmhouse. They started shelling us again, and these medics were carrying litter patients down to this farmhouse. They started shelling us again, and we dropped them. The medics dropped the litters that they was carrying the wounded on. There about 15 or 16 of them. The rest of us could walk. I could walk hard, but I had shrapnel in me. They had to get it out. But anyway, we laid there till 4 o'clock in the morning. That house was full of wounded. I don't know, 50, 100 of them in there. There was medical treating them the best they could. And this officer said, "Fella, get over there and lay down and get you some sleep. They're going to try to move you all out in the morning." So they woke us up 4 o'clock in the morning. We walked from 4. Now I could walk. I wasn't walking too good, but I was walking. They was carrying 15 or 16 litter patients on litters. And we ran into probably 15, 20, 30 German prisoners that they was taken back to the rear that captured. And they'd give us a break. We walked from 4 o'clock in the morning. This is in the Apennine Mountains, hilly country. We walked from 4 o'clock in the morning till roughly 5 o'clock in the evening till we got, see, they didn't have helicopters then to haul the wounded out. And jeeps and trucks couldn't get up in them mountains, a lot of mountain areas, you know. And we had to walk out. They had to carry you out, or you walked out if you was wounded. It's not like today. This was 72 or 3 years ago. They didn't have the helicopters that they've got today. In fact, we didn't know what a helicopter was back then. But anyway, we got to this little town. There's wounded laying everywhere. They were laying on the streets, church pews, inside the churches. Some of them hollering, screaming. And they was trying to wait on the best they could. Well, here come the ambulances. They picked me up pretty quick. I didn't have to wait too long. And they took me to Florence, Italy. I was operated on in Florence, Italy. Then they moved me to Leghorn, Italy, on the west coast. Then I stayed there 2 weeks, and then moved me up to Piombino, Italy, up northwest corner of Italy. And I stayed there roughly 2 months. Had 2 other operations, and discharged me. They discharged me around the 1st of January 1944 and sent me right back to the front lines. We manned defense positions after I got out of the hospital up in the mountains, the other side of Verona, Italy. And in the snow, it come, several feet of snow, 2 or 3 feet up to our waist, and we manned defense positions near the front lines for 2 weeks, about 2 weeks. Then we moved from that location to a relief area 15 or 20 miles back off the front. You had to walk everywhere. See, I was in the infantry. You had to walk nearly everywhere you went. We had to walk about 15 miles back to this area for sort of a relief area. Then we got word we was going to have to cross the Po River, and the Germans had retreated across the Po River on the other side. I had a man in my platoon, which is a good friend of mine, good buddy. He was he stayed with the company commander, sort of a bodyguard, you might say, with the company commander, and he carried a Thompson machine gun. Well, we waited in the rain. It started raining. We waited in the rain for amphibious ducks to come up and take us across the river. So it got to getting late in the evening. The commander said, we got to get across this river before it gets dark. Somebody found 5 rubber German rafts that they had left on our side. We confiscated those rubber rafts and put 2 men in each raft. And the lieutenant told me, he said, you stay last to make sure all the men get across. You all get that last raft. We got caught in a whirlpool in the Po River. Oh, I guess it was probably a half acre, taking us around a circle, and they were firing tank guns at us, the Germans were, and firing mortars at us in that river, and we were in a rubber raft. I can't swim. I was scared to death. There was 3 of us in that raft. There wasn't supposed to be but 2. But we got all that and didn't have no paddles. We was picking up boards, planks we could find for paddles. But we got across without getting injured. My buddy climbed a tree to spot that German tank. A sniper shot him, killed him. He fell roughly 50 foot down the base of the tree. And we put him in for a Silver Star, posthumously awarded him. But he got killed. But anyway, he spotted that tank, and he had an artillery observer with him. And they opened artillery fire from our side and knocked that tank out. They brought those ducks over up later. We done crossed the river. When those ducks got to us, we was crossing a canal, real rough moving canal of water, a double canal. They brought these amphibious ducks up, and they'd hold 20 men. Now we had our packs, a rifle, all ammunition. We'd get in that duck, and they'd been bombing there's shell holes along the bank of this canal. This duck slid off, and I was on the low side, 20 of us in this duck, with all our gear on, still having on. That duck slid off in that canal, that dirt give away with it, and it was sitting like that. Now I've told this, it's hard to believe. I don't know where this bulldozer come from. We didn't have a bulldozer with us. That bulldozer put a chain around that amphibious duck and pulled us out of that shell hole. Now, I don't know where he come from. One of them big bulldozers. Now, whether it was German troops had it on that side, but I think God played a hand in that. I don't know where that. See, the bridge had been blown out on our side. They broke the Ostigla Bridge out, and vehicles couldn't come over the bridge. So where that tank come from, I don't know, but he saved us, pulled us out of that shell hole. And it's just one thing after the other. Now, we got to a point in, if you ever heard of Verona, Italy? Verona? I helped take Verona, Italy. I volunteered in one that was awarded the Bronze Star Foot. They brought 4 T-34 Hellcat tank destroyers, 4 of them up. They formed a spearhead to go into Verona, to take Verona. They had 4 tank destroyers. They called them T-34 Hellcats. That big long gun on them. I turned around to my lieutenant and I said, "Can I take a squad of our men ride that last tank?" He said, "If you hadn't got no more sense, get a squad of our men, get on that tank if you want to do it." I took 12 men, got on that tank, and we rode on top of them tanks 35 miles into German territory and took the town of Verona as it got dark. And we had a number of skirmishes throughout the whole period of time there. They blowed a German tank was in a roadblock edge of this town. One of the big Panzer German tanks. He fired a tank round and hit the tank that the company commander was on, the lead tank. Killed the tank driver, blowed the turret off the tank, and we were the last tank. We heard the explosion, and we moved up and see what was going on. They had fired a 20 millimeter ACAC gun and hit my company commander in the side and blowed him off of the tank he was on. He slid in that canal, one canal down there. The radio man jumped off of the tank and pulled him out of the canal, saved his life, and I never saw him anymore. But we took that tank driver prisoner. He come out of the tank. One of our tanks fired a round at that Panzer tank, and the driver come out. He surrendered, and we took him prisoner, of course. But we went into Verona at about 11 o'clock at night. Oh, awful firefight. I don't remember killing any of them, but there were dead Germans laying everywhere. This tank I was on fired, and as moon had come out, it was sort of a little light at night. He took his tank gun. It was a German truck. They thought it was their troops retreating, see, into Verona. They didn't know we was coming in on them. He took that tank gun, hit a German truck. I saw 15, 20 Germans running to jump in that truck, open top truck. He took that tank gun and fired around, hit that truck. Oh man, it wasn't nothing left of it. And here come 2 on a motorcycle and a sidecar. They come down this side road, and I wasn't 100 foot from them. They was gonna make a quick getaway. He took that tank gun, hit that motorcycle, blowed it all over the street. Arms, legs went everywhere. But war's horrible. It's a horrible thing. But I wound up in occupation and spent a couple months in occupation. Then I was sent home, and I flew back in a B-17 bomber from Naples to Casablanca. They called it the Green Project. I had high points. I had the Bronze Star and Purple Heart, and then it gives you higher points. They're sending the high point men back home and flying them back. To get them back, we were supposed to go take Japan. And the war ended. We got word I was in there flying over the Atlantic Ocean when the pilot come in on intercom, said, the war's over, they've signed surrender, Japs, and he said, we're on the way home. So I stayed a while in a couple camps, and they sent me to Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, to discharge me, put me in the military police, and assigned me to a bus station in Fort Oglethorpe. I had 7 MPs under me. I was a platoon sergeant. I had 7 MPs working under me. But then I got discharged. Basically, they were like us. I was around them quite a bit, and a lot of them could speak English. And in fact, I got an assignment to carry a German high-ranking naval officer from Trento up northern Italy to Rimini, Italy, all-day journey. I was by myself with him and 2 German drivers, to turn him over to the British. The British was on the Adriatic Sea side of Italy. And he had been responsible for laying the minefield in the Adriatic Sea. And I got orders to take him to Rimini, Italy, and turn him over, and he could speak perfect English. The nicest fellow, you wouldn't want to have been around him, nice fellow. High-ranking naval, German naval officer, speak perfect English. I was in the back seat with him. He turned around to me and he said, Sergeant, how long you been in the Army? I told him. He said, what state you from? I said, Tennessee. He looked up, he said, beautiful state. He said, I was over in your state in 1939, said, I've got a sister, lives in Dallas, Texas. And he said, beautiful country up in there. I said, I love those mountains up. Oh, just like talking to you. And he was a high-ranking German. I've talked to German soldiers. A lot of them could speak English. Hitler saw to that they could, in high school, could learn English, because he's wanting to take the world over, you see. And they were. I've talked to them. In fact, when we took that castle where I got all the weapons and all that stuff, they built a bonfire. We'd swap rations. They were just like us. You couldn't tell any difference if they didn't have their uniform on. They're good people. Now there's certain elements of the German army, Gestapo, and they had an army called Wehrmacht, I believe. I can't spell it, but they was tough troops. Gestapo, they were the secret police. They were brutal. They had a high ranking, his name was Himmler. He was right next to Hitler. He was the most vicious man in the German army. He was responsible for killing thousands and thousands of people, German Jews. And he was a vicious man. I've got a picture of him at home, and I got a picture of the 2 German generals that was over the German army in Italy. Full 8 by 10 pictures of them. I got a few things left at home, but this is a Gestapo pin, German compass, Gestapo stamp. I took a Gestapo stamp and stamped that to get the emblem up. That's German built buckle. And so on, so on. I remember where I was standing when they announced that President Roosevelt had died. I remember exactly where I was standing, in Italy, of course, and we were still fighting. And it was before I got wounded. They announced over loudspeaker system that President Roosevelt had just died, and President Truman. I'd never heard of President Truman. I didn't know he was the vice president, of course. But young man, I'd never heard of President Truman, or Vice President Truman. But anyway, I thought, well, the war will never end, you know. But President Truman came in there and he took over, and he was responsible for the atomic bomb that ended the war. And shortly after he took over as president, Roosevelt died in April, I believe April 16th, 45. And Truman come in as vice president, took over. They was creating the atomic bomb then. They'd done had it perfected, I'm sure. But he gave the order to drop it, and it saved. If we had invaded Japan, there'd been millions of American troops killed if we had invaded Japan. But that ended the war, and I've got a picture of the Enola Gay. A friend gave me. His daddy worked on the Enola Gay and Tennant Island and Okinawa. The Enola Gay was stationed on those 2 points, and his daddy, when his daddy died, he come to. I was working in the police department, and we had a dark room, and he brought some pictures down. He said, "These pictures of the Enola Gay, my daddy worked on it," and he said, "I appreciate if you'd copy them and make some copies of it." So he said, "Make you a copy of it." So I got a copy of the Enola Gay that came from his daddy, who was dead. And anyway, it's a lot of stories.